While the Witcher series definitely doesn't lack in the mystery or intrigue department, there's one secret, one big question that hangs over the head of every single fan of the series. Just what exactly did Geralt wish for with his last wish? So I'd like to explore that a bit today. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you're watching this video, hi Mom! Your support means a lot, but I'm gonna spoil some big parts of The Witcher. So if you haven't had the chance to watch the show, play the games, or read the books yet, I'd suggest catching up first. Now for those of you who are still here, I will provide a quick recap of Geralt and Yennefer's first meeting and their experience with the Djinn. The summary is going to be generalized enough to work for the original short story, The Last Wish, and the Netflix show adaptation in Episode 5, Bottled Appetites. Geralt and Jaskier stumble onto a sealed jar containing a djinn, and open it accidentally in their ensuing argument over it. Jaskier attempts to wish for a few things, but the djinn attacks him instead, damaging his throat, and leaves. Geralt brings Jaskier to Rind in search of a healer. Geralt gets some advice from an elf named Círdan to bring Jaskier to the local sorcerer, who has been selling her services in town against the local council's wishes. Geralt knocks out a guard using a coin purse to get into Rind and meets the sorcerer, Yennefer of Vengerberg, who has used her powers of enchantment to get around the local laws on spellcasting so far. Geralt and Yennefer appear to hit it off and seem to be interested in each other, and Yennefer agrees to help Jaskier after hearing about the djinn attack. After healing Jaskier, Yennefer enchants Geralt, and the next thing he knows, he's been imprisoned along with Círdan. Círdan tells him that after being enchanted, Geralt went around town settling scores for Yennefer by beating and humiliating several of her enemies. Círdan realizes what had happened and tried to stop Geralt, but the two of them were arrested by the town guards. Unfortunately for Geralt, their jailer is the same guard he knocked out the evening before. The guard begins viciously beating the Witcher, and Geralt wishes that the man would burst, and surprisingly, he does. Meanwhile, Jaskier, who everyone believes to be the djinn's master, has been forced by Yennefer to make a third wish. Yennefer tries to capture the djinn for herself, since she believes that the djinn is no longer bound to a master. Of course, Geralt was the djinn's master from the start, and he has now only used 2 wishes, having used one earlier at the time of Jaskier's injury. This means that the djinn cannot be captured by a new master, and it violently resists Yennefer's attempts to capture it. Geralt, wishing to save Yennefer's life due to his feelings for her, goes to her and attempts to talk her out of trying to capture the djinn. She disregards his advice and continues anyways. The struggle between the djinn and Yennefer damages the building they are in, threatening to collapse it in on them. Geralt realizes that releasing the djinn at this point would mean it would certainly kill Yennefer in retribution. Geralt thinks for a moment and makes his third and last wish, after which the djinn disappears but leaves Geralt and Yennefer unharmed. The two of them make love in the ruins of the building, setting the stage for the rest of their relationship. If we want to guess what Geralt's last wish was, we need to clarify certain base information for what Geralt knows about djinn. Geralt knows 2 very important things about djinn that come into play here. 1. Djinn won't kill their current masters. And 2. Djinn can be mischievous and will try to twist the words of their masters if they wish to do harm. Since the djinn wants to kill Yennefer, and Geralt wants to save her, his wish would have to directly guarantee her instant and continued safety, which immediately discounts any open-ended or unrelated wishes like, I wish for Yennefer to love me, since that wouldn't save her. One way to protect Yennefer is explained by Krep, a priest in Rind who appears in the short story The Last Wish.
It's not that simple, but if he expressed the right wish, if he somehow tied his fate to the fate, no, I don't think it would occur to him, and it's probably better that it doesn't.
This idea of their fates being bound is backed up by Yennefer's reaction to hearing the wish in the books.
I don't know whether such a wish can ever be fulfilled. I don't know whether there's such a force in nature that could fulfill such a wish. But if there is, then you've condemned yourself to me.
This brings us to our first potential theory on what Geralt wished for, which is simply, I wish for our fates to be bound together, or something very similar. Let's weigh the pros and cons of this wish. Simple, direct, and would definitely tie their fates together, as described. This theory actually works well enough for us to follow the story along without needing to second-guess the wish ever again. But, assuming we do decide to look a little closer, there are some problems here. This wish is not really Geralt's style, as he doesn't really believe in fate or destiny at this point. A wish this broad also leaves wiggle room for the Djinn to twist the words around a little bit. An example of this could be that, the Djinn could just have allowed the building to collapse on both Yennefer and Geralt. If they both died at the same time and the Djinn didn't directly attack Geralt, their fates would still have been bound. I've heard it suggested that this is actually the case, but that Yennefer saved them using her magic. This seems very unlikely to me, since she was way too magically exhausted after fighting the Djinn to do any sort of magic at that level. Along with binding them together, there seems to be a component of lasting protection to the wish. But, without getting too far ahead in the story, let's just say that Geralt and Yennefer don't live forever, and they don't even die of natural causes. This suggests that while the wish does offer some protection, it's not permanent, which implies that it is either a conditional protection or time-limited. Since we never hear about Geralt or Yennefer discussing or thinking about how much time they have left until the wish runs out, I lean towards the idea that the wish has a conditional component to it, meaning that Yennefer and Geralt will be protected until a certain condition is fulfilled. Given Yennefer's quote from the books where she expresses doubt that the wish could ever be fulfilled, the wish must be something extraordinary. Let's look for some more clues. On the show, Yennefer doesn't hear the wish right away. After getting some of the story from Geralt later on, Yennefer gets upset when she finds out that the wish bound them together, since she believes that her feelings for Geralt must be magical. Geralt insists that their feelings are real, but he doesn't contradict that they are still somehow bound together. That means we can also probably rule out any sort of wish that forces the two of them to be madly in love or together forever. To get a little metatextual for a second, there's a quote from Lauren Hissrich, who's the showrunner of Netflix's The Witcher, regarding whether the writers know what the wish in their version of the story is. She says, "We know. I'm not sure anyone else will ever know. But to know the story, we had to very much decide on, this is what we're hearing, so that we can make sure that as the dominoes fall in later seasons, we all understand what it is." In my mind, this only reinforces something that I think would have to be true regarding the wish, and that is, that it has to be very closely tied into the themes of Geralt's story. Since I'm mentioning themes, those of you who have seen my video about villain Trettenmirth, the Golden Dragon, can probably guess where I'm going with this now. If you haven't seen the video, I suggest you watch it, and it should be appearing in the card right now. As I explained in that video, Geralt's destiny is to raise Ciri, his child of surprise. Now, logically, it's possible that Ciri being Geralt's destiny could be separate from Geralt sharing his fate with Yennefer. But from a literary point of view, it's nearly guaranteed that the three of them are all tied together. The timeline in the books is murky, so it's a little unclear whether the wish would have caused Geralt to become tied to Ciri, or whether the wish simply brought Yennefer in on it. But the show's official timeline places Geralt's wish as happening after Ciri is promised to him by the Law of Surprise. This leads me to believe that Geralt made a wish that goes something like, "I wish for Yennefer to raise my child with me." This effectively ties both of them to Ciri, as both of them are very involved in her life, acting as father and mother to her. And not to get too spoilery again, both of them live at least long enough to see her raised out of childhood. A wish like this also explains why Yennefer would have been doubtful that the wish could ever come true, since Yennefer and Geralt have both been sterilized by unnatural means, and at this point, Yennefer would believe this means she could never be a parent. But again, as discussed in the Villain Trettenmirth video, you don't need to be the biological parent of a child to be their parent, or for them to be your legacy or destiny. So that's my theory. But let's ask the author. Looking at a Polish language interview that featured Andrzej Sapkowski, he once answered a question about what the last wish was, with a quote which roughly translates to the following. What exactly the last wish was, only Geralt and Yennefer know. They spoke so quietly, I couldn't hear. It had nothing to do with offspring, that's for sure. It's rude to talk about procreation during a romantic tete-a-tete. This quote might initially seem to contradict my hypothesis, but on closer examination, I think his word choice shows that Mr. Sapkowski would make a very sneaky Djinn. Now, even though this is a translation, within the context, we know that he doesn't use words that refer to children or parenthood generally, as you might expect if he were dismissing the idea of the wish involving children or becoming a parent. He very specifically uses words that mean offspring and procreation, which only explicitly rules out that the wish is about Geralt and Yennefer having a biological child together. In a bit of a roundabout way, I think that this quote from Sapkowski actually endorses the idea that the wish somehow involves Ciri, Geralt, and Yennefer all being tied together, and that the wish is what helped forge the Sword of Destiny, which is a concept I will explore further in a future video. That's not to say that this wish is absolutely airtight and perfect, though. There's still some room for criticism here. While I think my interpretation of the wish holds up pretty well, especially when it comes to the books, I have heard some dissenting opinions that need to be addressed when it comes to the show. The most compelling argument I've heard against this version of the wish is that in Episode 6, Rare Species, Geralt reacts very poorly to hearing that Yennefer wants a child. He teases her, tries to dissuade her, and even lashes out at her about her desire to heal her sterility. So surely that means he can't have wished for her to be the mother of his child just one episode before, right? And honestly, I can't dismiss these criticisms entirely. But I think context is important here. When Geralt first asks Yennefer about why she's on the dragon hunt, she reveals that she wants to kill the dragon and use its heart to heal herself. Geralt reacts by teasing her, saying that it's just a made-up fertility cure, and that she'd definitely be a bad mother. While this seems really nasty on Geralt's part, and could be seen as strong evidence that he would never want her to be the mother of his child, there are a few factors at play here. First of all, Geralt believes that killing dragons is wrong, since they are intelligent creatures, and he knows that Yennefer knows this too, so he's trying to dissuade her from continuing on the quest. Secondly, he genuinely believes that the remedy wouldn't work anyways, so he especially wouldn't want an intelligent creature to die for no reason at all. The third, and most interesting factor, is that Geralt has a habit of regretting the decisions that push him towards his destiny. At this point in the show, Geralt has already come to regret his snap decision to invoke the Law of Surprise, which first granted Ciri to him. He's convinced himself that he shouldn't claim his child of surprise, because his lifestyle is not suited to children, and he uses this argument with Yennefer for why she shouldn't try to cure her sterility. I think it's completely possible that Geralt quickly came to regret his wish as well, and that the guilt that came as a result would explain why he left Yennefer after their very first night together in Rind. At the time of making the wish during Episode 5, Geralt is extremely aware that Yen wants to cure her sterility, and it's certainly possible that he tried to get two birds with one stone, saving her life and giving her a child. But if Geralt doesn't believe that witchers and sorcerers should have children, this would leave him feeling extremely conflicted about his wish once he realized the implications of what he'd done. Leaving Yennefer would make it so that the wish couldn't come true, and would temporarily alleviate his guilt over bringing a child into their lives via a hasty wish. Of course, Geralt's feelings for Yennefer are so strong that he can't really help himself when he's around her, which explains their on and off relationship. This brings a level of complexity to Geralt and Yennefer's dynamic that isn't apparent on the surface, and explains why Geralt is simultaneously ecstatic and unhappy whenever he's with Yennefer. She wants a baby, but thinks that Geralt is neither willing nor able to give it to her. And Geralt knows that he has tied Yennefer to himself through a child that he never intends to claim, which is super tragic. Some of those who are critical of the show would say that this level of writing would be beyond the show's writing staff, and that the wish is probably something simpler, like the aforementioned "I wish for our fates to be bound together" version of the wish. But if we want proof that all three of their fates are intertwined, we only need to look at the very last couple of seconds of the season, where Geralt says to Ciri,
"People linked by destiny will always find each other."
To which Ciri responds,
"Who is Yennefer?"
This question is prompted by her dream of Tissaia and Geralt screaming, "Yennefer," and her grandmother telling her to find Geralt. So it seems to me, Ciri's prophetic abilities are already telling her that the three of them need to be united. As far as we know, Yennefer has never interacted with Ciri, Ciri's parents, or Calanthe, which means that she must be bound to Ciri through Geralt. And what do we know binds Yennefer and Geralt? Geralt's last wish. But what do you think? Have I missed something? Do you have another idea about what the wish could be? Please let me know down in the comments, and give me a like and subscribe here on YouTube so you can keep up with my future videos. This is The Laughing Storm, and I hope to see you next time.